Spoken Word Festival ends tomorrow, and among the participating poets are Vangi, Gantsho, and Makhafula, Vilakazi, who join me now in studio. And guys, I have to take my hat off to you because I do feel that it's somehow underrated, the amount of effort, the amount of kind of imagination and emotion that goes into these works, Vangi.
I think so, definitely. But as with any art form, you know, it's not just the end product that is there. It doesn't miraculously appear, you know. There's a lot of backstory, the research, the writing, the memorizing, the rehearsing, the freaking out.
Because you're on stage tonight and you're doing a new piece of work, but Makhafula, you're on Thursday on stage. Yeah. Just talk to me about that experience. I mean, we are in 20 years of democracy. What was your artistry about on Thursday?
It was basically a reflection, you know. It wasn't on the 20 years of democracy, and so far it was not like a political sort of performance, you know. But I was just reflecting on society, you know, talking about things like witchcraft, crime, HIV, you know, and how that affects sort of the youth in post-apartheid South Africa. Yeah.
Although your piece wasn't reflective on any political issues, but I mean, in the back of, as an artist, as somebody who observes our daily interactions on a political, social front, 20 years of democracy, what does that mean to you as an artist, as somebody who has the ability to make a living off something that he's deeply passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely means a lot. I think for me, poetry, whether it's 20 years of democracy or whether it's during apartheid, you know, has an important role to play in that you are sort of looking back at what society is doing and reflecting on it and sort of making people to question themselves and to celebrate themselves and the like, yeah.
Vangi, how do you reflect on 20 years of democracy as an artist and as a woman? And you know, it's such an interesting point because right now, we are talking about women's issues. We've had so many artists on the show over the last couple of years being reflective of women empowerment, wanting to pull other women up. How do you see your role as an artist in the progression of women's issues and rights?
I think, you know, as Makhafula is saying, art is a reflection of society. And so I think the role of artists is to continue to remind people. So for me personally, I write from black woman, and that's the standpoint that all my work is going to come from. And as a result, you're going to get a lot of maybe some anger, some hope, some nurturing, all these qualities that, you know, that embody black women, things that I've seen from my mother, lessons I've learned from all the many mothers who have grown me, the hurt that we continue to face, the hope that we carry.
How brutal are you as an artist when it comes to creating that piece of work? I don't know where you go as an artist, whether it's inner reflect, whether it's reflecting on other people's struggles that you're connecting with, but how brutally honest are you, Vangi?
You can't lie to the paper. Like, when a poem comes out, it's the truth. If you allow the process to come out organically, it's the truth. It's only through the editing that you begin to kind of, you know,
add a filter, take away the filter?
Well, sometimes, but not necessarily. I mean, I'm the kind of person who, I'm quite in your face. A lot of my poems are very, they will shock you into silence or listening or, you know, they're not, yeah, I don't sugarcoat very well.
And Makhafula, how do you feel about the brutal honesty of a piece?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Van is saying. Like, when you write it, it's coming right from your heart onto the paper. And then you sort of have to read it and say, okay, is this something I can say if you feel really strongly about it? And then it's the editing. And it's also brutal in a way that you're also looking at yourself, you know, and presenting yourself to people, to an audience. And how much of yourself can you give?
Because that was actually my next question, because obviously there's the naked truth of this piece, of this child that was born, and then now you're sharing it with the world. You're sharing it with people that are almost virgin to this new piece. And is that the moment of honesty that says this is going to work, this is not going to work, people don't like this, I should change? Or are you saying that maybe they need to hear this?
I think you must understand that writing and performing are two different processes. So the writing is very personal, and then the performance is very, you have to respect your audience. You have to be aware that you're going to be judged for this. And so it becomes even more, it's like standing naked in front of strangers, you know, and it's terrifying because people have the right to like you or not to like you, and publicly so. As much as you stand on stage and shout and declare your words, they have the right to throw them back at you. And so that hurts. It's like someone telling you your baby's ugly. Like, you know, but that's the risk you run.
Talk to me about your Thursday performance and how you felt about it, and what does this festival mean for artists like you? Because they are growing in number, and some of them in more stature than others.
Yeah, the festival, I think it's very important, especially for poetry, in that it's sort of taking poetry to, call it mainstream, but more like to people who wouldn't ordinarily go to like poetry sessions, and that is in a public place like the Market Theatre. So I think it's definitely a step forward for poetry as an art. As far as my performance on Thursday was concerned, I did something about witchcraft, and it was weird because I sort of got into it, and I lost
that
myself.
Reception back from the audience?
They laughed at me, so I don't know. Like, you know, I thought the piece was quite shocking, but sometimes, you know, people don't know. When people don't know how to react, they just laugh. That's what I find, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting that Makhafula mentioned that poetry is going mainstream. And my question to you is, Vangi, if it's going mainstream, does that mean people are going to the bookstores or e-books online and buying it? Are poets, are spoken word artists starting to see that money flowing into their pockets?
Oh, how we wish.
In 20 seconds. Answer that question in 20 seconds.
I think more people are consuming poetry, but it's not necessarily as financially rewarding as we want it to be yet. So we live in hope.
Talk to me quickly about tonight's performance. You on Makhafula's. He's had people laughing at his last performance because they were shocked. What do you expect tonight?
Today's going to be a great lineup. I mean, it's Asylum Garcia and myself and Kwaz, some of my favorite poets. It's going to be a lot. There's going to be some controversy. There's going to be a lot of truth. But it's basically, you know, a cross-section of society, I guess.
Just quickly, I know I said it's my last question, but I just want to know, who are the poets on the African continent that you look up to and think, okay, well, these guys have paved the way, and maybe there's one or two that you think we should keep an eye on them? Other than yourself, of course.
Well, you mean currently or just...
Well, just somebody that inspires you, somebody that you read.
Yeah, I'm inspired by a lot of sort of like old South African poets like the Don Materas, Oswald Mtshali, Sipho Sepalman, Makhafula, there's lots, man. There's lots. So I think for me, that is sort of where my poetry starts. It starts from their poetry and trying to continue it into sort of the next level. Or it's not a level, but sort of making it relevant to the struggles that people face today.
Vangi, and for you, who do you connect with?
I love Utamkhulu Don Matera dearly and his work. Prof. Khositsile, Philippa Yard de Villiers, Baisha Jenkins. And then outside South Africa, the Wale Soyinkas, the Ben Okris, you know, these are, you know, stalwarts of poetry who've, you know, who are just inspiring because of their respect for the craft and how they've been able to kind of learn it and use it to, you know, change their little parts of the world.
Project for me very quickly. And I know we always get into this space, and I know that we always ask you guys, we put you in the hot seat and we say, okay, I remember a couple of years ago, poetry was this elitist thing that, and I have to be honest, a lot of people classify the guys that don't really want to work. They're interviewing, putting words on paper. They're gathering in little underground places, and that's it. And yet it's become mainstream, and it's gotten slowly. But for me, Makhafula, where do you want to see spoken word? Because I do think it's, although we use the word poetry, I do feel it's the advanced cousin, the advanced brother, because it feels a lot more interactive to me, if I have to be honest.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you should say that. The way sort of watching it growing from the early 2000s when I started doing it, it's difficult to say where do you want it to go, but it's beautiful to see how it's growing and how it's sort of becoming a thing of itself. And just being part of that, yeah.
Last 15 seconds to you, Vangi.
I also think it's beautiful. You know, with the advancement of technology, you're seeing a lot of technology being incorporated into poetry. So people are having backing vocals, people are using audio visuals, you know, so poetry has become an experience as opposed to just a listening ingestion. It's, you know, it's an entire body experience.
Thank you very much. Final word to you. You're on stage tonight at the Market Theatre at the Spoken Freedom Festival. That's Vangi, Gantsho and Makhafula, Vilakazi. I hope I said your surname right. And they'll be on, and it ends tomorrow. So if you want a whole body experience, go to the Market Theatre. We take an advert.